I have been involved with the fintech segment, at least in Singapore, since it was TechFin back in 2016-17.
Right.
Everybody, every pitch, every time says fintechs will disintermediate banks, we'll overtake financial industry, etc. and stuff. And by your own admission, fintechs have made great progress, but they have a smaller pie, smaller part of the pie right now.
Sure.
So why have fintechs not overtaken banks, etc. in at least, let's say, wealth management?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very valid question, right? Now, take for example payments, right? We've got successful companies like in Singapore, like let's say Niam, for example. Then you have companies like Stripe and all. Now, if you think of Stripe, the kind of business they've built, and I know their valuations are slashed by half and all, they are actually bigger than many global banks, right? Like in some ways, not of course the biggest, but they are bigger. So if you think of, let's say, the payment processing and all that, technically you can argue that fintechs have made a very, very significant dent. Right. But then you have to also say, when did the evolution of that industry started? The payment started 25 years or roughly around, give or take around then. That's when these things started, right? Now, wealth, for example, had much higher thresholds. Like if you go back 7-8 years ago, you could not be a wealth tech with digital onboarding. You just couldn't do it, right? Some of those things have only happened in recent times. So in a sense, like for any industry to really become commonplace and take time, it takes decades. Of course, what you're going to see is that time will shrink because of, technology, things like digital onboarding, regulations more open to this and so on and so forth. But wealth tech is very nascent. Yeah. Wealth tech, as I've mentioned this earlier also, I feel we are today where ride hailing was, 12, 13 years ago, or where, e-commerce was 20 years ago. So I feel that, it will definitely make the next decade will be very different to the past. But overtaking, I think it might need longer. Simply because this is a business of trust. And I think that takes a lot of time to build. And then when you have some episodes like you've seen with some of the other, sectors where they have had like poor internal management, etc., that kind of trust erodes.
Yep.
Right. You've seen this, but it's happening everywhere. Right. I mean, you're seeing banks getting impacted, right?
Yeah.
So the reality is, who is unaffected by this? Right. So early days is what I'm going to say.
No, absolutely. And I think that is a very, very honest answer. And, some of it is self-inflicted, by a few bad players. But,
Sure.
Everybody needs to build that trust.